Hey guys, it's week 4 of our biology course here at MCPSS TV. I'm Dr. Mack, and we're going to continue on with our third week of genetics. So this will be our last week of genetics, and then we'll move on to a completely new topic next week. So today we're going to go a little bit more into complex genetics. So some of the things I want to make sure we cover. What are the differences between these different types of complex patterns? So we've got 3 big ones, actually 4 we're going to talk about. How can you analyze these, which we're going to go back to our Punnett squares we've been talking about, and what happens with the environment? How does that influence it a little bit? So as you can see, we have a whole bunch more vocabulary. Vocabulary is key with genetics. If you know your vocabulary, you know what these questions are asking you. So we've got a lot of terms we're going to introduce this week. And the first one is we're going to talk about sex chromosomes and sex-linked traits. So we all know that there are males and there are females. And as a human, if you are female, you have an XX. Remember, we have 2 copies of every chromosome, so each copy for a female is XX. If you are a male, you have 1 X and 1 Y. Now, these chromosomes have some unique genes on them as well. All right? Now, we have our other chromosomes. Remember, I've mentioned that term autosomes maybe in the past, but autosomes just means it's a chromosome that's not one of your sex chromosomes. So we got 22 pairs of those, like chromosome 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And then we have our 1 pair of sex chromosomes for that 23rd pair, and again, you're either XX or you are XY. Now, these chromosomes on these traits on these sex chromosomes are called sex-linked traits. Now, what makes this unique is that if you are male, since you only have 1 X, you only have 1 copy of these traits. Where female, it's just like all our other chromosomes, you have 2 copies. So, color blindness is one of these traits. As we already, if you're color blindness, we're going to let B stand for normal, little b stand for colorblind, okay? Now, for females, you can either be homozygous big B, so capital B, completely normal. You could be little b, which is what you have to have that recessive colorblind trait for a female. Or you could be heterozygous like we see here on our Punnett square, and that means you're a carrier. You have normal vision, but you carry that colorblind trait. Now males, again, they only have 1 X, so they can be X big B, which means you're normal, or it could be X little b with the Y, which means they're colorblind. There is no carrier status with males. You are either normal or you have the sex-linked trait. All right, so in this particular Punnett square, when we look at this, we have a heterozygous or carrier female that is crossed with a normal male. And when we fill in our Punnett square, we have either X, so X's go here and the Y's go here, and then each of these get an X. But we can either get X, completely normal, or we can have a completely normal male, or we can get a carrier female, but we can get a colorblind male. Now, here we go. Females are XX, males are XY. So if you are a male, you got your Y chromosome from your father. It's the only place you could have gotten it. And you got your X chromosome for your mother, okay? So if you have one of these sex-linked traits as a male, you got the sex-linked trait or this recessive trait from your mother, okay? It doesn't matter if your dad was colorblind. You're going to get his Y chromosome. You can only get that recessive trait from your mother, okay? Hemophilia is another sex-linked trait. Now, on this, what I want to talk about real quick is, I know it's a little small, but the pedigree charts, like we mentioned last week, are really easy on the sex-linked traits because remember, you start with your males. And so like this male is normal, so he is X. I'm going to use a capital H for normal, Y. However, this one has hemophilia, so, whoops, drew the wrong letter there. X, little h, Y. All of your males are XY, and they either have the normal trait or they have the recessive trait. And then you can go through and then you do your colorblind, your hemophiliac females, if there are any, and you would give them the trait, okay? And you would fill the females out just like you did last week. So that's it for sex-linked. Now we're going to move on to incomplete. Now, up until this point, we have talked about dominant versus recessive. You either are tall or short, you're colorblind as a female or your normal vision, whatever it is, you either have the dominant trait or you have the recessive trait. There wasn't anything in between. Well, incomplete means that if you are heterozygous, which means one copy of each, is you actually do get a blend. So in this case of flowers, if you have a red, completely red, crossed with a completely white, you get pink. Red and white together make pink. If you had something blue and yellow, you'd end up with green. You get the combination, okay? Now, traditionally, most textbooks are going to reference your incomplete traits using capital letters, but instead of one capital, one lowercase. So red in this case is going to be R1, and they use the numbers as a subscript. White is R2, and then you see a third trait, okay, when you see the heterozygous, one of each. All right, so it works just like the Punnett squares that we've been doing. Same thing as we've been saying for the last 2 weeks. In this case, you can recognize, though, that it's incomplete trait because either you're going to see the numbers or you're going to have 3 traits listed. If you see 3 traits listed in your problem, you know right then and there that we're going to have incomplete dominance. So let's practice this. Again, like I said, incomplete has 3 traits. In this case, we have red, blue, and purple. All right? That should let you know we get a blend. So in Harry Potter, we have dragons. And we have really strong fire-breathing dragons, and then we have no fire. In this case, this particular textbook used a prime or apostrophe to show the incomplete. And then they go and say, if you were to read, they say that a heterozygous is a moderate. So you get strong fire, moderate fire, blended trait, or no fire. So you have 3 phenotypes. So if you have a strong fire dragon and is crossed with a moderate fire dragon, first, what are the genotypes of the parents? Well, we just saw strong fire was capital F, so we are going to have capital F, crossed with capital F, F prime. All right, what are the chances of having a strong fire dragon offspring? What are the chances of having no fire? And what are the chances of having a moderate fire offspring? So let's do our Punnett square. So again, we have our Punnett square. We have a strong fire, which was capital F, crossed with a moderate fire. If we fill in columns first, now our rows. Let's look at this. So it asked, what are the chances of having a strong, moderate, and no fire dragon? So if we look at our Punnett square that we filled in, strong, this one's strong, so 2 out of 4, 1/2, or 50%. This one was moderate, this one was moderate. So again, 2 out of 4, 1/2, 50%. None of these squares gave you a no fire dragon. So we have a 0% chance of having a dragon offspring between these 2 parents that won't breathe fire. Okay? So remember, big thing with incomplete is you see 3 traits in your problem. You will see a red flower is crossed with a purple flower. What are the chances of a blue flower? Or so on. You're going to have to look for these clues in your problems. Now, another complex trait in Harry Potter is height. Hagrid. All right? We know he's tall. But Hagrid had a mom that was a giant, and his dad was a normal wizard. Okay? So, who did he get his height from? Hagrid's only about 12 feet. Now, in the Goblet of Fire, Hermione will actually tell you that who his mom and dad were, and that giants are about 20 feet, okay? And then wizards are normal people, so average height is somewhere between 5 and 6 feet. Well, Hagrid's only 12 feet, all right? So we have 20, we have 5 to 6, 12's in the middle. Ding, 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 incomplete dominance. And if you were actually to take the average between the two, a blend of the two, you see you end up right at about 12.5. So that's a way to do it mathematically as well. But, so just remember, with incomplete dominance, If you end up with a phenotype, a trait, that is a blend or a combination of your two paternal traits, you are dealing with incomplete. Now, codominance. All right. A lot of y'all are members of sports teams, and you have captains and co-captains, right? They're your two leaders. If you have a coworker, that is somebody you work side by side with, all right, you share responsibilities. Well, in codominance, you are sharing expression. So in this case, they are both expressed. There is no blending, all right? You're not, if you had a flower, instead of red and white making pink, you're going to have a flower that's got red spots and white spots. Kind of, you're going to see both. Codominance likes to both be seen equally, all right? So both phenotypes are going to be visible. So in this case, like I just said, if you were to have a red flower and a white flower, you get a red and white flower. There's no pink, no in between. It's both. Codominance is both. So in Harry Potter, if you remember Goblet of Fire, we had the mer people in that lake. And if you pay attention, some had blue tails, some had green tails, and some of them had blue and green tails. So what that looks like is that if you were a blue tail, it's capital B, capital B. Now look, this whole time we have used the same letter for everything. We're changing letters on you. Capital B, capital B, capital G gives you green. And now blue and green means you got a B and a G. You use two different letters because they're both seen equally. All right? So if we were going to do this in a problem, we have the mer people's tail, again, is controlled by codominant gene, we tell you here. Your clue, if it did not say codominant, you have two different letters. You see it there in the problem. Blue is B and G is green, and they're both capital. That is your clue. Show a cross between two mer people have blue-green tails. All right, heterozygous. What are the phenotypes and their percentages? All right, so if we were to do that, again, we're going to do our Punnett square just like before. B, G, one parent across the top, one parent down the side. All right, and when we look at it, we have one BB, which is blue, which is 1 out of 4, 25%. We have 2 BGs, which are blue and green. So bluish green or blue and green, which is 2 out of 4, or 50%. And then we had 1 GG, which is green. So again, 1 out of 4, or 25%. So, works just like every Punnett square we've been doing, except in this case, it's not a blend, okay? We don't add blue and green and get some pretty color of turquoise, okay? That's not what happens. We see blue and we see green, all right? So this could express in stripes or spots or something like that, but we see both colors. Another favorite Harry Potter character is the hippogriff. Now, they're also expressed codominant. Now, in this case, if you look, it's kind of like, well, we have multiple alleles, all right? So we have a chestnut, we have white, and we have black, okay? Now, they call a red roan as somebody that is chestnut and white, okay? So red roan means it's covered in both white and chestnut hairs. So if you have one parent that is chestnut and the other has a white coat, all right, what happens with your Punnett square? So again, remember chestnut down here down the side. We have just capital C, white, capital W, capital W. The only cross you can get, it's 100%. There is no way any cross between these two parents, they're going to have a red roan, okay, much like the one we see in Harry Potter, but they're going to have a red roan offspring. Now, everyday life for multiple alleles is our blood types. Now, we all have a blood type. You are either A, B, O, or AB. Now, and we equally express both. Now, I am not picky in my classroom, but a lot of, you will see all of a sudden we use the I with the capital A. Some textbooks and some teachers will want you to use the I with the capital A, but pay attention to these capital letters. Again, A is for A, B is for B, and I, in this case, little I is for your O phenotype or O blood type. Now, all this means for blood type is just because our blood cells have antigens on there, okay? And we have antibodies against the ones we don't have. So it means our body will attack another type of blood type if we don't have it. So if you are A, you have the A antigen on your blood cells. If you are B, you have the B antigen. And if you are O, O means none, you have 0 antigens. All right, and if you are AB, you have both A and B. All right, so let's talk about this. So for A, blood type A, I'm going to make me a little list over here. You can either have remember we got 2 copies of everything. You could either have AA, or one copy could be A and the other copy could be O. If you are B, you could be BB, or one copy B, the other copy O. All right, and if you are AB, there's no way around it. One copy's A, the other copy's B. And if you are O, you are OO. Now, what this means is, if you are A, you have the A antigens. That means you can receive blood from somebody with A blood type. Or you could receive blood with somebody from the O blood type. Because remember, the O blood type has 0 antigens on it. So there's nothing to react to. Okay? If you are B, you can receive blood from somebody with B. Or you could receive blood from somebody that is O. If you are AB, you express the A antigen, so you can receive blood from somebody type A. You have the B antigen, so you can receive somebody from type B. And you could receive blood from somebody, obviously AB, and O as well. So O is what we call the universal donor. If you have type O blood, as you grow older, you'll recognize the Red Cross will call you a lot for donations because they want your blood type because they can give it to everybody in an emergency. It is the universal donor. Now, if you were O, unfortunately, you can only accept O-type blood. You can donate your blood to whoever, but you can only accept O-type blood because you have no antigens, which means you have antibodies against everybody else. All right? And then we called AB, if you notice, since they could, I'm sorry, I think I said universal donor, but AB is the universal acceptor because, again, they can take A, they can take B, and they can take O. All right. Now, coat of color of rabbits. So sometimes we've been talking about dominance. I'm going to add you another layer here. So even though they're codominant, some are a little bit stronger than others. There's a hierarchy. So when you get to rabbits, we have this is black, capital C is black, CH is chinchilla, H is a Himalayan, and C is this. Now, so if you can imagine, you're going to get a blend of these traits, but with multiple alleles just means we have multiple versions, and so you get more combinations. And all this is saying is, so the only way to get this white boy here is to have little c, little c. And then if you had H, it would mask that, and you would see the Himalayan. But if you had chinchilla and Himalayan, you're going to see the chinchilla trait, okay? That's all this greater than means, is that gene's stronger than the next gene, which is stronger than the next gene. Okay, we all know what a greater than or symbol are. Now, here's my favorite. This is how it applies to us. Think of you and all your friends and how different your skin color is and how many different variations of skin color there are between everybody you know. We can go from the fairest of the fair, albino, no melanin in their body whatsoever, to the darkest of the dark, okay? And then there's everything in between. And this has to do because polygenic traits. So remember, poly means many. So this says that we have many genes for this trait, multiple genes. So in this, remember we have an A, B, and C gene. We have 2 copies of each gene. Each of these copies are expressed. So if you start looking, you can see as we go and start adding in this next thing, we added 1 capital letter of each gene, and we end up in a fair category. Then we go on, we have 2 capital letters. We're a little bit darker. Now we have 3 capital letters. We're in that nice medium skin tone, all right? Now we have 4 capital letters in any combination. We're in what we call that olive skin tone range. We start getting a little darker. 5, all the way to 6, the darkest of the dark. All right, so we have all these variations, and that tends to be letting you know how many copies of a dominant melanin trait that you have in your body. All right, so that will actually finish up what we have going on for this week of complex traits. It was a lot to process. Remember, focus on your vocabulary, and that will help you know exactly where we stand or help you figure out the questions to the answers. The biggest thing is, remember, with sex-linked traits, if you are female, you are XX, and it works just like dominant recessive. You are either homozygous dominant, capital letter, heterozygous, carrier state, capital letter, lowercase, or homozygous recessive, which means you have that sex-linked trait, like color blindness, lowercase, lowercase. And again, when we write that, it's like X, X, and then we add our capital or lowercase letters up at the top as superscripts. If you are male, you are XY. So anytime I see a male, I write XY, and then it's either you are either capital letter, normal, or lowercase letter, you have that trait, one or the other. Incomplete, your big clue was you have 3 phenotypes. So it might be red, white, and pink, blue, yellow, and green, red, blue, and purple, strong fire, no fire, medium fire, so on, okay? If you see those 3 traits, ding, ding, you are getting a blend. Now, if you are having a combination, so blue-green and blue-green, or red, white, and flowers that have red and white, like spots and stripes, think of those little Amazon frogs that are so pretty, that are black with red spots on them or something, okay? Those little poison dart frogs. That is codominance. And with codominance comes the multiple alleles, like we see here in skin color or like I mentioned in your blood types, okay? So hopefully that helps clarify some things for you. Next week, we are totally switching gears and we're moving on to Darwin, and we're going to talk about how animals adapt and change to their environment, okay, and how they've done this through many, many generations. I look forward to seeing y'all next week, and I hope y'all have a great one.